Se-ri gets separated from the group and goes missing in the busy marketplace. When Jeong-hyeok hears that she is lost, he quickly buys a candle and holds it up high, hoping that the light will help her see him and find her way back. He playfully mentions that the candle is scented this time, and they both share a gentle smile, feeling relieved and comforted to be reunited. As they walk home together under the quiet evening sky, Se-ri shyly admits that, for a brief moment, Jeong-hyeok made her heart flutter. She felt a sudden rush of emotion because of what he did. Hearing this, Jeong-hyeok realizes it's the right moment to finally be honest with her and reveal the truth about his situation. Jeong-hyeok tells Se-ri the truth, that he already has a real fiancé back home. Upon hearing this, Se-ri pretends to be upset, acting as though she's offended by the idea that Jeong-hyeok believes she might have developed romantic feelings for him. She quickly denies it, insisting that she doesn't have any emotional attachment to him. In fact, she confidently claims that there are several men back in Seoul who are probably heartbroken over her disappearance and might even be crying because she's gone. At the same time, Seung-joon drops Dan off at Jeong-hyeok's house, which is clearly empty at the moment. Despite the awkward situation, Dan remains composed and coldly brushes him off. As Seung-joon is being driven away in his car, he happens to pass Jeong-hyeok and Se-ri walking together. He glances at Se-ri and has a moment of hesitation. He thinks she looks familiar. But after a brief pause, he shakes off the idea, deciding that it's impossible for her to be the person he suspects she might be. Wol-suk and Okjum spot Dan standing outside Jeong-hyeok's house and stop to ask her what she's doing there. Dan calmly tells them that she's waiting for Jeong-hyeok and confidently introduces herself as his fiancée. The two women are shocked and visibly uncomfortable. They had assumed that Se-ri was Jeong-hyeok's fiancé. Unsure of what to say next, they exchange awkward glances and quickly excuse themselves, walking away in confusion. Meanwhile, Jeong-hyeok tells Se-ri that his real fiancé is currently studying abroad in Russia, so she won't interfere with their plan or cause any trouble for them. But just as Jeong-hyeok and Se-ri turn the corner, they unexpectedly come face to face with Dan. The moment Se-ri sees her, she immediately realizes who she is, the mysterious fiancé Jeong-hyeok just mentioned. Dan, on the other hand, completely ignores Se-ri, pretending not to notice her at all. Instead, she calmly tells Jeong-hyeok that she only came by to pick up her uncle's car. Wanting to be polite and perhaps ease the tension, Jeong-hyeok offers to drive her home since it's already late in the evening. Jeong-hyeok explains to Dan that Se-ri is helping him with a mission, and that once the mission is completed, they will go their separate ways and won't see each other again. Se-ri nods in agreement, though she rambles a bit about her work in Division 11, trying to sound convincing. Dan, however, seems uninterested and brushes off her explanation, saying that she doesn't care about the details. Jeong-hyeok then sends Se-ri inside, assuring her that he'll be back soon. As he and Dan drive away, Dan notices that Jeong-hyeok keeps glancing nervously at the rearview mirror, his worry clearly showing. This catches her attention, but instead of asking about it directly, she reflects on their relationship. She points out that this is only the 7th time they've spent time together, and that in the 7 years since their engagement, only 2 of those moments have been shared as a couple. With a sigh, she declares that there is no real love between them and that she wants to feel it before they go through with the marriage. Dan calls her mother to let her know that Jeong-hyeok will be dropping her off, and upon hearing this, her mother quickly starts to parade around in front of her brother, Colonel Go. She's clearly in a rush and is trying on several fancy outfits, unsure of which one to choose. She seems to be putting on the show for him, perhaps seeking approval. Colonel Go, however, calmly tells her to simply be polite, so after much fussing, she settles on wearing a hanbok, the traditional Korean dress. When they finally arrive at the house, Jung-hyuk is eager to get back to Se-ri, but Dan's mother insists that he stay for dinner. As they sit down, she continues to talk endlessly, mentioning how the matchmakers have been pestering her to find a suitable partner for Dan. It's clear that her mother has been under pressure from all sides. Colonel Go, however, bluntly comments that he's never heard anything about this, catching both women off guard. Meanwhile, Jung-hyuk, feeling increasingly uncomfortable, nervously glances at his watch, clearly anxious to leave and return to Se-ri. Seung-joon can't stop thinking about Se-ri. The woman he saw earlier that evening looked so much like her. He recalls how Se-ri's brother, Se-hyung, had once set them up on a blind date. Se-ri had played her role as the picky princess perfectly. She made it clear right away that there wouldn't be a second date. From the start, she had pegged Seung-joon as a conman, someone who was only interested in tricking people. She bluntly told him to scam some money from Se-hyung and then disappear from her life for good. Meanwhile, Se-ri is growing more and more excited each time she thinks she hears Jung-hyuk returning home. She catches herself, laughing at how worked up she's getting over something so small. Just as she calms down, the village wives arrive with snacks and beer, their faces full of sympathy for what they believe is Se-ri's heartbreak due to Jung-hyuk's betrayal. They're convinced that Dan has no morals and is somehow responsible for causing trouble. Trying to keep her spirits up, Se-ri decides to teach them a few South Korean swear words that apply to women, using the moment to let off some steam and shift the atmosphere. Young-ae, who has always held Jung-hyuk in high regard, shakes her head in disbelief. She tells Se-ri that she should really break his neck for getting engaged to two women at the same time. The group of women begins to discuss how they should teach Jung-hyuk a lesson for his actions, clearly outraged by the situation. Even Manbok, who is listening from his makeshift bunker nearby, mutters to himself in frustration, adding that you can't always judge a person by how they look on the outside. Not backing down, Young-ae says that she's going to speak with her husband and make sure Jung-hyuk is kept from getting promoted. Se-ri, realizing that things are escalating and she needs to take action, quickly steps in. She calmly tells the women that Jung-hyuk and Dan's engagement was arranged by their parents, and that her own relationship with Jung-hyuk is far more complicated. She compares it to a tragic, star-crossed love story, similar to Romeo and Juliet, to people destined to love each other but torn apart by circumstances beyond their control. After leaving Dan's home, Jung-hyuk heads to see his own parents. When he arrives, Director Ri, his father, tells him that he expects him to marry Dan within the year. Jung-hyuk agrees, but, with a serious tone, he asks for a favor in return, implying that there's something important he needs from his father in exchange for his compliance. Meanwhile, after the ladies finally leave Jung-hyuk's place, Se-ri takes the chance to speak with Young-ae once more. She asks her to speak to her husband on Jung-hyuk's behalf, hoping that Young-ae might put in a good word for him. However, Wol Suk, who is clearly drunkenly shouts that boyfriends are far better than husbands, causing a bit of chaos. In her state, she needs to be helped back home by the others. The next morning, Jung-hyuk finally returns home, looking worn out from the previous day's events. When he steps inside, he finds Se-ri sitting quietly, a little too calm for his liking. She's lined up empty beer cans neatly across the floor, a bizarre yet deliberate setup. With a pointed look, she tells him that if he doesn't cross the line, there won't be any trouble, no war, between them. Her words hang in the air, making it clear that she's setting some kind of boundary, though Jeong-hyeok isn't sure whether to take her seriously or not. Jeong-hyeok calmly explains to Se-ri that he's been working on a plan to help her escape the country. Hearing this, Se-ri's anger begins to fade, replaced by a mix of relief and curiosity. He goes on to tell her that she's going to be made a reserve member of the international track team, which will allow her to travel with them to Europe. Once they're there, she will go missing, disappear from the team and make her way back home to South Korea, where she'll be safe. However, as Jeong-hyeok lays out their plan, Man-bok, who is still lurking around and listening in from his hiding spot near Jeong-hyeok's house, hears every word. His presence adds a sense of tension, as it's unclear whether he will use this knowledge for good or to cause trouble. In order to get a passport, Se-ri will need a proper photo, which means she has to get a North Korean hairstyle for the picture. The problem is, all the hairstyles available to her are at least 20 years out of date. After much deliberation, Se-ri reluctantly chooses the one with huge waves, a look that is not only outdated but also embarrassingly dramatic. The ladies, trying to make her feel better, take her out shopping for clothes to prepare for her new life abroad. To her surprise, Se-ri gets excited and actually enjoys the shopping experience. But just as she's having fun, it hits her, she has no money to buy any of the clothes. This realization leaves her feeling both embarrassed and frustrated, adding a new layer of complication to the situation. Se-ri and the ladies head to a pawn shop to try to get some money. For a brief moment, Se-ri considers pawning a beautiful, jeweled necklace she's wearing. It's a piece with sentimental value, but she ultimately decides against it. Instead, she chooses to pawn her limited edition watch, expecting to get a fair amount for it. After all, it's a special, high-end item. To her surprise, the pawnbroker offers her only a few dollars. The low payment is explained by the fact that the pawn's value is based mainly on the weight of the tiny leather strap, rather than the watch itself. Disappointed, Se-ri notices another similar limited edition watch on display. When she asks about it, the pawnbroker tells her that a man had pawned it many years ago but never returned to reclaim it. Meanwhile, Man-bok, still keeping tabs on Jeong-hyeok and Se-ri, reports their plans to Chul-kang. He informs Chul-kang that Jeong-hyeok and Se-ri are planning to smuggle her out of the country, and that they will need to travel to Pyongyang soon to get Se-ri a passport. Man-bok believes that this could be part of a larger scheme from Division 11, but Chul-kang, listening carefully, is quick to dismiss that idea. He now knows for sure that Se-ri isn't connected to Division 11, which complicates things further. Out of nowhere, Chul-kang brings up something unexpected, Jeong-hyeok's late brother, Moo-hyuk. He mentions that the watch Moo-hyuk had been wearing when he died went missing, and he suggests that if Jeong-hyeok ever finds that watch they will be in serious danger. This revelation sends a shiver of tension through the room, as the mention of Moo-hyuk and the lost watch carries a sense of unresolved history and danger that could resurface at any moment. When Jeong-hyeok arrives at the training base, something immediately feels off. The usual buzz of activity is missing, and he soon learns that all his teammates have been summoned to the State Security Department. This sudden development causes a sense of unease, making Jeong-hyeok wonder what exactly is going on. Meanwhile, Chul-kang confronts Yoon-dong, who is visibly terrified. With a cold, threatening tone, Chulkang warns Yoon-dong that only the first of the four men to confess the truth about Jung-hyuk will survive. Yoon-dong, however, isn't intimidated. He tells Chulkang that since it's been a while since they were brought in for questioning, Chulkang must have already spoken to the others. The fact that Chulkang is still asking questions means he hasn't gotten the information he wanted yet. Chulkang, infuriated by Yoon-dong's calmness and defiance, punches him in a fit of rage. But just as things are about to escalate, Jung-hyuk bursts into the room, his voice sharp and angry. He glares at Chulkang and demands to know directly if there's something he wants to ask. Chulkang, with a sneer, insists that Jung-hyuk won't get the truth from him. Jung-hyuk retorts, saying that only the person involved can tell the truth, and that it's time for Chulkang to face the truth about his own actions. The tension between them builds as the power struggle becomes more personal. At that moment, the senior colonel calls Chulkang, his voice booming through the phone. He questions why Chulkang has received an official request from the State Security Department to meet with him regarding the recent truck accident. The mention of this incident shifts the focus of the conversation, but Chulkang's expression shows that this is far from over. Jung-hyuk, realizing the situation is escalating, leaves with Yoon-dong, but as they walk down the hall, they unexpectedly run into Man-bok. There's an awkward pause between them, the tension palpable in the air. Neither man knows quite what to say, and after a brief moment of hesitation, they both continue on their way, their unspoken tension lingering between them. Se-ri is walking through the area when she notices a group of kids bullying a little boy. They're shouting cruelly that he's the son of the rat, a nickname that clearly carries some weight. Seeing this, Se-ri's protective instincts kick in. She approaches the kids and firmly tells them that bullying is an act of cowardice. With authority, she chases them off, sending them running home in fear. Turning to the little boy, Se-ri realizes he looks familiar. He's Wupil and Man-bok's son. After the bullies have fled, Se-ri asks him why he let them treat him that way. Wupil, looking down, quietly explains that his dad told him to always be good to his friends. Se-ri, trying to gently guide him, explains that it's important to be kind, but that kindness doesn't apply to people who hurt you. Se-ri then gives him some advice: if they hit him first, he should hit them back. Wupil looks up at her, wide-eyed, and asks if that's what she did. He calls her Nuna, a respectful and affectionate term for an older female, and his innocence and sincerity catch her off guard. The way he says it is so charming that Se-ri's heart softens a little. Smiling, she replies that yes, she did, and it made the bullies stay away from her. But then, with a more serious tone, she adds that while it might be tempting to stand up for yourself, it's better to be lonely than to suffer the pain of being hurt by others. Her words carry a quiet wisdom, born from her own experiences. Back in Seoul, Secretary Hong and Suchan meet with a man who has some important information. The man explains that he recently heard something strange on a walkie-talkie signal. He plays them the recording, and to their amazement, it's clearly Se-ri's voice calling for help. The realization that she's alive fills them both with hope and excitement. Thrilled to have this proof, they quickly ask the man for the audio file, eager to use it to find Se-ri and bring her back home. Meanwhile, Sejun's wife, Hyeji, pays a visit to her mother-in-law, hoping to win her favor and help her husband's position. However, her attempt backfires when she carelessly insults Se-ri's mother. In a misguided attempt to earn her trust, Hyeji says that now Se-ri is gone, she will be the one to take her place as the daughter. Her words, though meant to be kind, are received as disrespectful, and Se-ri's stepmother immediately kicks her out of the house. Hyeji, shocked by the cold reception, leaves with a bruised ego. In China, Se-hyung is hot on the trail of Seung-joon, determined to track him down. His team has captured Mr. Oh, Seung-joon's broker, and Se-hyung offers Mr. Oh 10 times the amount Seung-joon paid him to find the swindler. Mr. Oh, reluctant but interested, calls CEO Jeon for assistance. After some discussion, CEO Jeon agrees to help, but only if he gets a cut of the reward, which complicates things further. Back at Jung-hyuk's place, he returns home with the battered and bruised teammates in tow. They've had a rough day, but Jung-hyuk decides to cheer them up with some ramyun. Se-ri, feeling responsible for their injuries, apologizes to the group and says she wants to give them all a gift. With a solemn expression, she suddenly flashes a series of finger hearts, a gesture commonly used to express affection in South Korea. The teammates, confused by the gesture, are taken aback. As Jung-hyuk walks them back to their barracks, they begin to discuss what the finger hearts might mean. They're all convinced that the gesture must indicate romantic feelings, just like the ones they see in popular culture, and it leaves them all speculating. Meanwhile, Jung-hyuk, visibly annoyed, tries to avoid the topic, his frustration clear on his face. When Jung-hyuk finally returns home, his mood is immediately clear. He storms into the room and glares at Se-ri until she notices his intense gaze. Annoyed, he grumbles, "Do you have multiple hearts?" His voice is sharp, clearly frustrated by the recent events and Se-ri's playful gestures. He quickly adds, more petulantly, that he's going to sleep in his own bed tonight, leaving Se-ri somewhat puzzled by his sudden mood shift. Jung-hyuk then sits up late, pouting like a toddler, unable to shake off his irritation. Meanwhile, in the quiet of the night, Myung-suk speaks to Man-bok, telling him how Se-ri had stood up to the bullies who had been picking on their son. She recounts how Se-ri had said it didn't matter if his father was called the rat, no one had the right to hurt him. Myung-suk offers words of support, assuring Man-bok that he's just doing his job, following orders. But after they settle down and the house falls silent, Man-bok lies in bed, unable to sleep. His mind drifts back to a painful memory from years ago, one that he can't seem to shake. Man-bok remembers a day long ago when he was severely beaten for exposing a fellow soldier who had been selling drugs. The punishment for being a rat had been brutal. They had threatened to cut off his ears to ensure he wouldn't be able to betray anyone again. But in the midst of the terror, Moo-hyuk had appeared, fearless and protective, chasing the bullies away without a second thought. Moo-hyuk's act of kindness had left an indelible mark on Man-bok's heart. Now, as Man-bok lies in bed in the present, he can't help but think of Moo-hyuk and the warmth he had once shown him. Tears begin to fall as grief takes over, and Man-bok sobs quietly, mourning not only the loss of Moo-hyuk but the overwhelming weight of past events. His heart aches, and the memories flood back, filling him with sorrow that he struggles to contain. The next day, Jung-hyuk and Se-ri board the train to Pyongyang, where Se-ri will have her photo taken for her passport. The journey is quiet, and although they're on a mission, there's an unspoken tension between them. Se-ri, still adjusting to the idea of leaving North Korea, tries to act calm, but inside, she's full of questions about what lies ahead. Coincidentally, Seung-joon and CEO Jeon are also on the train, making the same journey. Seung-joon, feeling restless and bored, has decided to make the trip because he's heard there's a casino nearby. In a flashback, we see a tense conversation between Jung-hyuk and his father. His father had warned him that he wouldn't offer any help if the person Jung-hyuk was smuggling out of the country got into trouble. Jung-hyuk's face hardens in the memory. He's determined to follow through with his plan, and he's convinced it will work. Just as they settle into their journey, the train suddenly comes to a halt. The power goes out, leaving everyone in an uncomfortable stillness. After a few moments of confusion, Jung-hyuk explains that the train has stopped in the middle of the tracks due to a technical failure. Se-ri, already anxious about the journey, is dismayed when he tells her that the repairs could take up to 16 hours. The wait stretches out ahead of them, and her frustration grows. She looks out the window, her mind racing with thoughts of what might go wrong. As the hours tick by, people start running up to the train on foot. Jung-hyuk notices Se-ri's confused look and explains that these are hopping salespeople, people who travel along the tracks, selling food, water, and other essentials to passengers who have to unexpectedly spend the night on the train. It's a part of life in North Korea, something Se-ri had never encountered before, and she watches with a mix of curiosity and unease as the vendors move from car to car, shouting their wares. As night falls and the temperature drops, Jung-hyuk decides to make the best of their situation. With the train's heating system out of order, he sets up a small camp outside for himself and Se-ri, trying to stay warm by building a fire. The flickering flames provide some comfort, but the cold still bites at their skin. Se-ri, ever resourceful, bats her eyelashes at Jung-hyuk with a playful smile, and he sighs, buying her some blankets to keep her warm. He even picks up some corn to roast when her stomach growls, ever attentive to her needs. However, as Se-ri subtly hints for some hot water to wash her face, Jung-hyuk's patience wears thin. He grumbles in frustration, calling her greedy for asking for so much. Se-ri, not missing a beat, pulls out her own money to buy the hot water, a small but significant gesture of independence. She casually mentions that she had pawned her watch to buy herself some clothes, but her eyes light up as she recalls the nice mains watch she had seen at the pawn shop earlier. Jung-hyuk, distracted by her casual tone, realizes that Se-ri's own way of handling things shows a different side of her, one that's not as pampered as it might seem. As they sit together by the fire, Se-ri grabs a hot potato, and in her usual way, burns her fingers. Jung-hyuk lets out a sigh, shaking his head as he begins to peel it for her with the careful hands of someone used to taking care of others. Se-ri looks up at him, her gaze soft and appreciative. "You're a good man," she says quietly, "you'll make a good husband and father one day." Jung-hyuk looks at her, his face briefly clouded with something deeper, something unresolved. He admits that he hasn't really thought about it, not because he doesn't want to, but because he's been hurt in the past. "I get disappointed when things don't go as I hope," he confesses, a rare moment of vulnerability slipping out. Se-ri can sense there's more, but she doesn't press. Instead, she leans in slightly, giving him a reassuring smile. She understands more than he realizes. Without him saying a word, Se-ri intuits that whatever happened in his past left a wound that's still healing. Her voice is gentle as she mentions an old proverb, "Sometimes the wrong train takes you to the right station." She laughs softly, adding with a playful smile, "I think I really took the wrong train this time, huh?" The humor in her words catches Jung-hyuk off guard, and he chuckles, the weight of their situation momentarily lifting. But Se-ri's tone shifts as she becomes more serious. Looking him squarely in the eyes, she says, even if things don't go as you wish, think of the future. Her words are soft, but carry a weight of understanding and wisdom. I hope that when I leave, you'll be happy. I hope you arrive at the right station no matter which train you end up on. Her kindness and insight pierce through the layers of his guarded heart, and for a moment, Jeong-hyuk allows himself to imagine a future where things do work out, despite the challenges. The fire crackles beside them, and in the warmth of their small camp, there's a fleeting sense of peace. As the morning sun rises, Jeong-hyuk and Se-ri finally arrive in Pyongyang. Se-ri's eyes widen as she takes in the unfamiliar city, marveling at the differences from what she's used to. Despite the tension of their mission, she can't help but feel a sense of wonder. She pauses, taking in the unfamiliar streets, the busy crowds, and the towering buildings. But as she looks around, Jeong-hyuk can't resist teasing her. You look like a real country bumpkin, he says, his voice warm with amusement. Se-ri laughs, a bit embarrassed but mostly entertained by his comment. They walk through the city, and after a while, Se-ri suggests that they take a picture together as a memento of their time in Pyongyang. She's already imagining how she'll look back at this moment one day, but Jeong-hyuk deflates her enthusiasm in an instant. We don't need to remember each other, he says bluntly, his words colder than she expected. The playful moment slips away, leaving Se-ri slightly disappointed, though she quickly hides it behind a forced smile. Meanwhile, in the hotel where Seung-joon and CEO Jeon have just checked in, the tension is palpable. Seung-joon's sharp eyes scan the room, and it's clear that something isn't sitting right with him. His instincts are kicking in, and he's beginning to grow suspicious of what's really going on. In the quiet of their room, Seung-joon excuses himself to change for dinner, but as soon as he steps away, CEO Jeon picks up the phone, dialing Mr. Oh. We're in Pyongyang now, he says, his voice tight with urgency. Seung-joon doesn't suspect anything, yet. But as he speaks, the door to their room suddenly bursts open, and Seung-joon is standing there, a gun pressed firmly against CEO Jeon's head. The tension in the air becomes suffocating. Without missing a beat, Seung-joon snatches the phone from CEO Jeon's hand and shouts at Mr. Oh, furious at what he believes is a betrayal. You've turned on me, he yells, his voice filled with anger. But then, a chilling calm settles over the room as Se-hyung's voice comes through the line. I've found you, Seung-joon, Se-hyung says, his voice low and menacing. And you're dead the moment you return my money. Seung-joon's eyes narrow as the line goes silent, and he takes a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He storms down to the hotel lobby, his mind racing. To his shock, he spots Se-ri, walking towards him. A surge of recognition runs through him, though he quickly masks it with a mask of indifference. Is your sister alive? Seung-joon demands, his tone sharp. Se-hyung's words still echo in his mind. On the other end of the phone, Se-hyung's cold voice responds, she's dead. Seung-joon freezes for a moment, the weight of those words sinking in, but he quickly shakes it off. I'll give her your regards, he mutters, before cutting the call short and dragging Se-ri into the elevator. The sudden shift in his demeanor unsettles Se-ri, but she's unsure how to react. She feels trapped, her instincts telling her that something's wrong, but she doesn't know how to break free. Smiling, he says he might not die after all, as Se-ri just stutters in surprise. A hand stops the elevator door from closing. It's Jeong-hyuk, who sees them still holding hands and moves towards Seung-joon. Additional scene. We see Se-ri breaking up with several boyfriends, making it clear each time that she ended things. Her last boyfriend had told her that she always pushed people away before they could hurt her, and that he hoped one day she'd meet someone like herself, someone who would make her wait. Se-ri had laughed it off, saying she'd never wait for a man. Cut to the night Jung-hyuk drove Dan back to the city, and Se-ri stayed up all night, waiting for him to come home.